My name is James Stewart, and it's my distinct privilege to be your sheriff of Anoka County, and I just want to thank everyone for coming here tonight. Tonight we're going to gather, share some information, and learn from each other, and come together to combat a criminal industry that is quite honestly attacking our communities right underneath our noses every single day. It's my hope that as we all leave here, we'll be wiser and better prepared to combat human trafficking as a combined force on a united front. We know we can't do this without partners, and tonight's event entirely came together because of a lot of great partnerships with Coon Rapids in the high school, as well as the police department, our faith community, and of course, the Anoka-Hennepin School District. So I'd now like to introduce one of our partners tonight, Mr. Jeff Simon.
Thank you. Hello, everyone, and welcome. My name is Jeff Simon, as Sheriff Stewart mentioned, and I'm the treasurer of the Anoka-Hennepin School Board. On behalf of the Anoka-Hennepin School Board and our district, I'd like to welcome you to our Coon Rapids High School campus, and thank you for attending this very important event. Tonight, the Anoka-Hennepin School District, partnering with the Anoka County Sheriff's Office, local law enforcement, and our panel experts, is honored to host a community forum on the very important and tragic topic of human trafficking. Human trafficking is a plague that not only impacts developing country and large urban areas, it is a problem that is in our communities, impacting our kids and students. Our school district takes this issue very seriously, and there are many people who deserve our thanks for bringing this event to our district. Thank you to the experts here tonight, and our district administration and staff for coordinating and recording this event so that we can have future awareness for this topic. I'd also like to send out a thank you to our Coon Rapids Middle School Police Liaison Officer, Pat Carlson. Detective Carlson proactively sent out information on human trafficking to the staff at Coon Rapids Middle School in March to increase awareness on this issue in our schools. And that communication began a discussion in our district, which is a large reason why we're all here tonight. Through this event and future efforts to bring this issue to light, it is our hope that our community and schools not only become even more aware of this problem and what it looks like, but that we can also offer even better support to our kids and students. Thank you once again for attending tonight and for your efforts to stop this issue.
Thanks, Jeff. Tonight is going to be pretty fast-paced, as we know we've got a lot of information to get out in a pretty short period of time, so I'd ask you to bear with us a little bit. We will be clipping along pretty quick. Tonight, we're going to give a quick introduction and overview of the human trafficking and the sex trafficking local issue. And yes, it's hard to sometimes embrace the fact that it is a local issue. We're going to then move into the Anoka-Hennepin School District and some of the related issues, the challenges they face. We're going to go into some local issues with Police Chief Brad Weiss. And we're going to talk about the warning signs with a representative from Breaking Free. Safe harbor laws, how they affect human trafficking with our county attorney. And we're going to close with the panel here to my left, your right, with a bunch of experts to be able to answer your questions, because we want you to have the information that you want to take away from here tonight. So I'm going to kick off the forum with a high-level overview of the problem and our responses thus far. But first, I'm told to give you a quick bio on me. So I have over 30 years working in the law enforcement arena, with over 20 years with the Anoka County Sheriff's Office. And I began working the streets as a patrol deputy and rose through the ranks by earning several promotions over the years. I've also had the privilege of working in and later supervising many specialty areas like the SWAT team, K-9, field training operations, civil process, and the Honor Guard unit. In command positions, I've had the privilege of overseeing operations in the Patrol Division, Justice Services Division, and Administrative Divisions. These experiences gave me a broad base of knowledge with which later to lead the organization when I was elected to be your sheriff about 3.5 years ago. In addition to being active with the Minnesota Sheriff Association and the National Sheriff Association, I'm a member of Fight Crime, Invest in Kids, the Minnesota Domestic Violence Committee, Minnesota Sheriff's Association Legislative Committee, the National Domestic Preparedness Coalition, a board member for the Equal Justice Committee, board member for the Rasmussen Metro Area Criminal Justice Studies. I'm also the secretary and treasurer for the Joint Law Enforcement Council and past board member for the Governor's Forensics Lab Advisory Board. I'm a former Marine, graduate of St. Mary's University and the National Sheriff's Institute. In a nutshell, I'm committed to service and the development of our youth and enhancing our community partnerships. And it is my belief that by working together, we can make a difference, and that's why we're all here tonight, and I thank you for embracing that same vision. Now, let's dive into the forum. Even after a career in law enforcement, honestly, I had no idea the extent of modern-day slavery going on right out in the open, right flagrantly occurring right in our communities, with no one really watching and not enough resources to truly put a dent in it. And it wasn't until Detective Straczynski, who you will meet later, really opened my eyes to the issue. Shortly after I became sheriff, he came in and asked for a few minutes of my time and ripped my eyes open to the tragic situation that is human and sex trafficking right here locally. And since that time, I've made a concerted effort to educate myself, and the more I learned, the more I realized we really need to be giving back and educating others, which is a big part of why we are here tonight again. I've had the privilege, our Commander Panani has had the privilege, and some of our other staff members have had the privilege of presenting on human trafficking and sex trafficking in a variety of different areas, civic groups, Rotary, Kiwanis Lions, et cetera, as well as to different school groups. And we'll talk a little bit more about that. Starting out, we should really get into the 101. What is sex trafficking? And it's the sale of adults and children into commercial sexual servitude. It's forced or bonded labor. Ultimately, we are talking tonight about modern-day slavery. It's the world's fastest-growing criminal industry. It is second only to narcotics in the entire world, and it's rapidly closing that gap and expected to pass it because humans are a reusable commodity. This is a very serious situation, and I can't emphasize that enough. If you have a takeaway tonight, the takeaway is keep educating yourselves and tell 2 people tomorrow and have them tell 2 people and have them tell 2 people. Keep getting the word out there. This generates $9.5 billion with a B dollars annually in the United States alone. So what drives it? I just said it. It's money. It's economics. It's basic supply and demand, and ultimately we know that evil is drawn to greed and money, and that is one of the driving forces behind this. Why is it happening? Because there are men out there who want to have sex with girls, boys, and women and not necessarily think of them as a human being or without any regard to the circumstances in which this is occurring. To what degree is it occurring? This is where I really started having a hard time with it. We like to think this is just a third world country issue. This isn't happening here. But instead, we know it's happening all over the world. There's millions of people being victimized every day. Nationally, the estimates are 300,000 people being victimized. Statewide, now this is where it starts to get scary for us as Minnesotans. We don't want to hear this, but it's the reality. In Minnesota, 8,000 to 12,000 people being victimized daily. Locally, we don't really know what the exact numbers are because, quite honestly, we haven't had the resources to be able to identify how bad the problem is. But we know if there's 8,000 to 12,000 within the state, do the math. We know there's a significant portion of it happening right here in the Twin Cities, and we'll get a little bit deeper into it, how it's actually being conducted. Some quick victim stats. We know that the average age that a child is pulled into this lifestyle to become being victimized is 12 to 14 years old. Now, if this doesn't start to upset you and make you a little bit sick, I shouldn't say that, but it's my goal to have you leaving here a little bit upset tonight because we should be upset that this is happening. The average life expectancy of the juvenile victim who is being prostituted is 7 years, either due to the narcotics that they're being pulled into that lifestyle of addiction, or to abuse, to suicide, or worst case scenario, to homicide. We know that there's a lot of kids that are missing across this nation that ultimately at some point in time were caught up in this lifestyle and they'll never be heard from or seen again. 1 in 3 teen runaways will be lured towards prostitution within the first 48 hours of running away. That someone will offer them the ability to work for a room. This is also very disturbing when you stop and think about it. The average number of times a day that the victim is forced to have sex is 20 to 48 times a day. So what are some of the risk factors as we get into the youth that might get lured down this path? And oftentimes it is more of a matter of enticement. The risk factors are poverty, the fact that they are youth. We all know when you're 11 to 12, 13 years old, your cognitive abilities aren't as keen as they might be when you get a little bit older. Runaway and homelessness, we're going to hear more about that soon. history of sexual abuse and or being prostituted within the family. Other family members may be caught up in this environment. And ultimately, a lack of resources or a support system in place. When you have nowhere to turn, you can, desperate times call for desperate measures. And chemical dependency, we'll talk a little bit more about that, but ultimately, chemical dependency is a real key area in this, and you'll hear about some of the statistics and how many of the victims are lured into or held into this lifestyle through chemical dependency. So where are the victims recruited? Ultimately, you want to find kids? Where do? You go where the kids are. They're going to shopping malls. These traffickers are looking in the public parks, beaches, roller rinks, schools. What bothered me is I like to think when I send my kids off to a high school football game or to a school event, it's a safe place. The reality is they're going where the kids are, and that's where they're going to be looking for any kid who looks maybe a little despondent or vulnerable or responds to a compliment. In this day and age, we also know a huge part of it is social media. They're looking for the kids on the internet. Why? Because that's where our kids are. I can't emphasize enough, if you have another takeaway, as a parent, as a person who has any kids in your life that you care about, know what they're doing online. My own kids have a real struggle with me sometimes because I'm not bashful about making sure I know what's on the monitor at any given time, and they will only be on the computer in a public area of our house, for example. But these websites are out there, and trust me, if we're not monitoring them, know this, the traffickers are. How are the victims enticed? And oftentimes, I think we like to think that it's the kids who are caught up in this and that are being trafficked and are pulled into this lifestyle are yanked off the front porch with a bag over their head and they're kidnapped, and we never hear about that, so it's not a problem. That's not the reality. And we use the word enticed because oftentimes it is exactly the kids we were just talking about, but they're promised a better life. They are told, again, I'll give you a place to stay. I'll provide you a roof over your house. I'll give you clothes. How many 11 to 14-year-old young girls, as an example, go to the mall and wouldn't listen closely to somebody who's a smooth talker, and they are, who wouldn't listen to them as they offer them a new iPhone? Meet me here next Saturday. The gifts keep coming. Again, we're talking about young kids who aren't necessarily aware of how dangerous our world around us can be. Again, the gifts, clothes, ultimately providing drugs and alcohol. If they bring the party, the kids, especially if they're struggling kids, might be prone to want to be drawn to that. How do they control them once they're in there? Through beatings and physical and psychological abuse, isolation from their family and friends. They ultimately convince these kids that they are the only person, the trafficker is the only person that truly cares about them. And there's a reason you shouldn't be with your family. And they begin to twist it and control it. Certainly they don't want them to think that law enforcement are here to help them. We are here to help them, and hopefully that message is loud and clear being broadcast tonight. But they're being threatened with arrest and jail time, and to make sure you do whatever you can do to avoid the police. Certainly threats against family is the last bullet point on this slide. We know that once they're caught up in this environment, that is one of the things that they're going to do, is threaten. If you try to get away from me, if you tell anyone, etc., then I might go after your sister. I might go after your mom. I'm going to hurt your dad. Things like that. And although you might have left that house because you weren't happy with the situation, deep down you still don't want anything to happen to your family, and it becomes a real control issue. How the traffickers demand payback? Sooner or later, their true colors start to show, and unfortunately it's often sooner than later. But I bought you the booze, I bought you the drugs, I gave you these gifts. That's one side of it. That's where the abuse and the psychological control comes from. But not unlike in a domestic violence situation, they also have convinced these victims that they are the only person that cares about them. I love you. The victims will often consider their trafficker as their boyfriend, and they'll refer to them as their boyfriend, even if they have several girlfriends. And again, similar to the domestic violence circles, they convince them that no one else cares about you like I do. But now, we need to make some money. So how do they begin trafficking these kids? This is another part that was very alarming to me as I began to have my eyes open. They market them right in the open in front of our faces because they know that unlike some of the heroin task forces, there's not as many, there's a small sampling of law enforcement across our nation whose full-time job or even part-time job is to be proactive in dealing with these situations. So their odds of pulling it off until now has been very good. So they go to these websites, they post the kids, here's what's more disgusting to me, or at least as disgusting to me. Then there's these other sites for review. So you as a John can go on and submit a evaluation. You can complete a review so that other Johns, prior to spending their hard-earned money, can know if they're getting their money's worth. This is all on the internet, right here, right now. So who is our trafficker and our pimp? These bottom-feeding dirtbags, I'm sorry, I'm not supposed to have my personal opinion there. These criminals profit from selling children to adults for that person's sexual gratification. The average pimp has 4 to 6 girls, although they are going to destroy dozens of lives over the course of their career if allowed to. And the pimp can make $150,000 to $200,000 per child per year. So some signs that the victims might display if they're being lured into this trafficking or if they are involved in trafficking. And keep in mind, early on, oftentimes, and there might be some better statistics from some of our other experts that come up here, but there's been situations they're still living at home. This is happening on evenings, on weekends, but things to look for are the evidence of that being controlled. New, older boyfriend or girlfriend, habitual runaways, again, evidence of new clothes or expensive gifts, those bruises or other signs of battering, other signs of somebody controlling them, and the fear or depression and the fact that they're going to be trying to hide some of these other things. So what questions do we want to be asking these youth at risk? Who are your new friends? This goes back to what we were talking about before with the computers. Get engaged, know what your kids are doing, know what any kids that you care about are doing, and know who their friends are. I can tell you when I was a kid, it was real easy for me to say, yeah, I'm going to go sleep over at Tony's house, and Tony would tell his folks he's going to go sleep at Jim's house. I can admit it now, because my mom's not here, but that wasn't what we were doing. So know who your kids' friends are. Where do you go after school and on the weekends? Where do you go when you're on the run? How do you get your food? How do you get your money? And as important, has anyone ever pressured you for nude photos or even for sex? You might be amazed at the answers you hear. Some of the challenges we're facing with law enforcement is the victims not reporting and cooperating due to fear, being trapped and controlled. Again, these traffickers have such control over the victims that they are afraid to talk to law enforcement. They've been convinced we're the bad guys, and so part of the problem is this. And I want to touch real quick on the side of being controlled. We had a case. One of our detectives received a phone call from a victim whose trafficker was in jail. The detectives did a great job, got this individual locked up. The victim called the detective and said, "I'd like to talk to him. I'd like to talk to my boyfriend. He's in jail. Why? Because I'd like to go outside and have a cigarette with my girlfriend, and I want to make sure it's okay." That's control. And that is the absolute psychological hold that they can have on these poor kids. Victims' credibility is another law enforcement challenge. There are circumstances in their lives, they're going through some hard times, and if they're caught up in this, they're a heroin addict, and because of their potential criminal record, is a jury going to accept them as a credible witness? Those are some of the things that are considerations. And societal attitudes towards victims. Historically, we've as a society have looked at this as prostitution, a victimless crime. They must be doing it because they love sex. They must be doing it because they want the money. I'm grateful that society and law enforcement as a whole is having our eyes open. That is not the case, and we need to keep converting that thought process. And the complexity and the length of the investigation. We had a case involving 2 traffickers who destroyed dozens of girls' lives over the course of their career just this past year, and we may or may not hear more about that as time allows. But ultimately, we had 2 detectives working full-time on this case, I should say full-time plus, lots of overtime, over the course of 8 months in order to get indictments on both of these. It went across multiple states. It went across numerous formal complaints, numerous search warrants, all of these things that you can imagine, and it becomes a challenge because of the way these traffickers are doing it. They have throwaway cell phones, prepaid credit cards. Today they're in North Dakota, tomorrow they're in the Twin Cities, they might be in Las Vegas next week. When you're constantly moving, it is a constant, very difficult uphill battle for the detectives. And so the biggest challenge ultimately for us becomes a lack of resources to be proactive. I would love to say for all of these hundreds of girls that are being trafficked and victimized out here that we have those 2 detectives to chase down these traffickers so that we can lock them all up. we all know that's not a reality, and we'll talk a little bit more about that in a little bit. I talked about the changing culture. This is very important to me because, again, historically, law enforcement might have also seen this as a victimless crime. Two people consenting, you know, yes, it's a crime, but it's one of those things that it just was looked at as narcotics violations, perhaps, were looked at decades in the past as well. But nowadays, especially within the Anoka County Sheriff's Office, I want to make it very clear that this is our #1 priority, and that's the rescue and the protection of the victims that are caught up in this environment. We have awesome detectives that are embraced in this with a real heart for making a difference and helping these kids get their lives back. As a result, what is the Anoka County Sheriff's Office doing about it? We've begun providing specialized training for Anoka County law enforcement and working real closely with our school resource officers and our school liaison officers. Much like the educational partners we have here tonight, they know who the at-risk kids are. They know who's going to be in a struggling situation, and so we want them to know how to more effectively deal with that situation. Coordination and training with community partners. This morning we wrapped up our second training for hotel and motel owners and managers and employees to ensure that they know what to look for and how to partner with us, because certainly they are one of the key components to this puzzle as well. Development of a countywide ad hoc task force. I talked about that case a couple of minutes ago and the demand on resources. We clearly don't have that, but as we identify a large-scale incident, we know we're going to need resources to throw at it. And I'm appreciative of our partners in blue within Anoka County. Not too long ago, reached out and asked our local police chiefs, is this something you're willing to partner with us on? We'll get everybody trained up. We want to work together in order to save these kids and to lock up the traffickers. And all of our local police partners who had the staffing availability said, yes, we're on board, and we certainly appreciate that partnership. And the community outreach and education, that's what tonight is about. That's what all of these civic group presentations that we've been doing are about, and we need your partnership to make a difference. So I thank you very much for being here. I'm really looking forward to, as the rest of this night unfolds, again, if you have a question, you can write it down for now or keep it in your mind. We will definitely have an opportunity for that in a little bit. Next up, I'm going to have Carrie Schaff come up from the Anoka-Hennepin School District. Carrie has been the Anoka-Hennepin's McKinney-Vento District Homeless Liaison since July 2011 and was a founding board member at Hope for Youth, the Anoka County Drop-In Center for Youth Experiencing Homelessness. Prior to Anoka-Hennepin, she spent 4 years at the Emma B. Howe YMCA, working with youth in transition and their families. She also expanded the YMCA Youth Intervention Services into Anoka County, which focused on youth experiencing homelessness and increasing community awareness on the issue of homelessness. Before moving to the YMCA, Carrie enjoyed 6 years at Westwood Middle School in the Spring Lake Park School District, where she taught in the Alternative Learning Program and managed a 21st Century Community Learning Centers grant, which had a focus on serving and engaging underserved and at-risk students and families. Carrie has her BA in Family Studies from the Metropolitan State University and has spent over 16 years advocating for youth and their families and continues to work hard to build a continuum of support services throughout our community. My partner, Carrie Schaff.
Sorry, I'm taller, so we have to adjust. Oh. Can you hear me? No, you can't. Sheriff, if you would wear your heels, this would have been easier for me. Can you hear me now? Okay, good. Okay, so I am Carrie Schaff. I am the homeless liaison for Anoka-Hennepin, and I want to thank each and every one of you for coming. I'm really excited to see the full audience out here. I'm going to bring it in. Sheriff talked about that at-risk population, and I'm going to talk specifically about what we're seeing in Anoka-Hennepin. So as the homeless liaison, I'm going to kind of bring it into Anoka-Hennepin and let you see what we have for students identified under McKinney-Vento. So when we talk about homelessness, we have a lot of stereotypes and images. This is actually a picture of an outdoor campsite in Anoka County. So I want everyone to understand that we have young people and families experiencing homelessness in this community. So this is an image of one of the outdoor campsites. Sadly, it isn't as easy as a street sign to say, oh, yeah, we have this issue in our community. And I often use this PowerPoint, and I asked a young youth group, I said, has anybody seen the sign? And every one of the third graders raised their hand. They're like, yeah, me. And I'm like, really, where have you seen the sign? Because it isn't as easy as a street sign in our community to see homelessness and to be able to identify. Oftentimes when we think about students or families or adults experiencing homelessness, we automatically connect that to a sign, a cardboard sign, someone standing on a street corner. And we don't see that a lot in our community, though it is increasing and we are seeing more of it in our area. It doesn't necessarily mean if you don't see a cardboard sign that we don't have homelessness in our community. I brought some numbers. This is the school districts throughout Anoka County. So I'm going to talk a big picture, and then I'm going to bring it in specifically with our district. So Anoka-Hennepin, in the 2012-13 school year, we identified 721 students as experiencing homelessness under McKinney-Vento. And then you can see the other school districts. Fridley identified 60, Columbia Heights 91. And this is our trend. So I went back to 2011. So the 10-11 school year, we had identified 248. The next year, we increased to 581. And like I mentioned before, we were at 721 last year. And I had to turn my PowerPoint in last week. So when I had to turn it in on Friday, we had identified 872 students. And before I came today, we are up to 881 students. So it shows you every day we are identifying more students. So as of today, before I came today at 4 o'clock, we had 881 students throughout Anoka-Hennepin School District as identified under McKinney-Vento as experiencing homelessness. Okay? A little snapshot of our families and our young people, where they're staying. Our demographics look a little bit different than Hennepin County. So majority of our families and our students are doubling up. They're couch hopping, couch surfing, sharing housing with others. That's about 70%. 15% are staying in shelter transitional housing. We do not have a homeless youth shelter in Anoka County. So when I say shelter, they're often going into Hennepin County or Minneapolis to access those services. We do have a Family Promise of Anoka County, which is a family shelter. And then we see about 11% stay in hotel motels, and then 4% are unsheltered. So those are the young people staying outside, and I'll show you a couple slides where these young people are staying, and you'll understand why it's real easy to recruit or solicit when you're seeing where they're forced to stay. So I broke down schools for you real quick, so you can kind of see where I'm at identification-wise. It might be hard to see Anoka High School, that says 33. And Coon Rapids High School, as of last Friday, we had 68, and they added another student, so Coon Rapids High School is actually at 69 students. So within this high school where we're at right now, we have 69 students identified as experiencing homelessness. And of those 69, 40 of them are unaccompanied youth. So that means a young person who's completely on their own. Okay, so 40 people just that attend this school right here, 40 young people who are experiencing homelessness on their own, not with their family, not with a parent or guardian. So we'll talk about some risk factors. Overall, throughout the entire district, 199 as of last Friday, and as of today before I came in, we're up to 203. So from last Friday to today, we've identified more unaccompanied youth. So these are youth generally 16 to 19, but their age can vary. We identify students birth to 21 throughout our school district. You see a UYW and a UYO. We break down young people who are on their own, but maybe they're staying with a boyfriend's cousin's neighbor who used to cut their hair. There's some sort of adult in the picture that we may be able to list as an emergency contact, but it's not their parent or guardian. They are on their own, and they are a youth. So that's the W. The UYOs are my most vulnerable, most at risk. Those are young people who have no connection to an adult. There's no one listed on their emergency contacts. They have nobody. Those are usually the young people that are out on the streets. Maybe they're sleeping in their car. They're going place to place. And for me, they're the most vulnerable, most at risk, because there is not that safe adult for them to connect with. People ask, why do these youth experience homelessness? What's going on with these families? And every one of the almost 900 has a different story. There's too many to talk about, but family and relationship conflicts are one of the primary ones. And oftentimes there's some dysfunction in the home. There's a new boyfriend or girlfriend in the house, and the student is asked to leave. The parent has said, you pick the boyfriend or pick the child, and the young people are asked to leave the home. Socioeconomics, we obviously are still experiencing some socioeconomic challenges in our community, not a lot of affordable housing options, so that's a huge issue. And then residential instability, so youth coming in and out of care or corrections are often at risk for experiencing homelessness. They're usually running away from something, and this is a really tough one for me. When I talk to some groups, people struggle with, well, they've got a home to go home to, why don't they go home? We have to remember there's probably something going on in that household that they're running away from. And as you talk to these young people and hear the stories, it's amazing the years that they've had to endure the stuff going on behind their door. So they leave thinking, they're fleeing from the hardship or the suffering and the pain that's going on in the household, and actually they're running into probably something just as dangerous. And that's where these traffickers are taking advantage of that. And I wanted to put this number up just so if there's anyone in the audience that needs it, it's a really good resource to have, or if you know young people, 1-800-RUNAWAY is a great number that you can call 24 hours a day. So nationally, here's some statistics. 100,000 children are used in prostitution every year, and 300,000 kids are at risk of commercial sexual exploitation. Youth experiencing homelessness and youth who have ran away are especially vulnerable, and that's why I want you to understand how big our numbers are in Anoka-Hennepin. And those are just the students that we've been able to identify. We know there are young people out there that we have not been able to track and count, and I want to remind you again, because I'll say it over and over again, as of today, we do not have a homeless youth shelter in Anoka County. So I've got almost 900 students and over 200 who are unaccompanied youth, and there is not an overnight youth shelter for these kids to go. So I told you I'd share some pictures. I have many youth that report sleeping in porta potties. I know I have a hard time when I'm at a public event using a porta potty myself. Imagine having to spend the night here tonight. Okay, I talk about this with my teachers when our kids we've identified as McKinney-Vento eligible don't have a PowerPoint done or don't have their homework in. This is where they may have spent the night last night. So if you think about these solicitors, these traffickers who are out there trying to find our young people and their outreach workers, that are taking advantage of kids, if I have to think about, okay, do I sleep in the porta potty tonight, or do I go with this man who just offered me a hotel room, he offered me some new clothes, he's gonna take me out to dinner, it's really hard to say no to that. And these predators understand that these young people have an option to stay in a porta potty or go with them to a really nice hotel. This is a park in Coon Rapids right by my house where I have found a couple of young people, 16 and 18, sleeping in the park. They had spent the night in the woods the night before and said there were too many scary noises, so then they moved up to the slide, and a lot of young people report sleeping in our city parks, and the slides and tunnels protect them from the elements, so we have many young people sleeping in our city parks. Sand Creek Park, I worked many, many years ago to open the skate park because my son was a big skateboarder and I thought it'd be great to have one in our community, and never, when I fought to open Sand Creek, did I think that this would be a place for our young people to sleep. So they're sleeping under the lips of the ramp, and then there's also a bathroom at Sand Creek, and the families and youth have reported getting into that bathroom, so they've got a place to wash up in the morning and a place that they can lock the door and be protected from the elements. This is another outdoor living site of a young man that I worked with when I was at the YMCA. He was kicked out of his house on his 18th birthday. We see that a lot. Family realizes that they don't have any more legal obligations, and they tell the young person that they have to leave on their 18th birthday. A lot of the intakes at Hope for Youth, a lot of them that we have at the school district, you see that the intake is on that young person's 18th birthday. So this is his outdoor living area, and this was October of 2009. And I really want people to understand the population that I am honored and blessed to work with. They're very resilient. Homelessness is an experience that they're having, and we really work hard in Anoka-Hennepin to help them through that experience. It's a little challenging when we don't have resources, and we realize that they're completely at risk because there are not shelters for them to go to when their options are to stay outside. This is a difficult slide to see, but the most important thing you can see, there's a phone number. We offer a community resource line, and Stacy and Jolene from my office are here, and Stacy answers the community resource line. And this is a great resource for anyone connected to any Anoka County school, not just Anoka-Hennepin. You can call for shelter resources, food shelf resources, or any other intervention services that families might need. So that's a really great number to have. If you've been in Coon Rapids for a while, you know the old Red Owl Shopping Center. That's where my office is. So I want everyone to know, if you know of anyone that is needing assistance, that's where you can find me and my team. The Hope office is in the old Red Owl Shopping Center in the mall. And I will be on the panel later if anybody has any questions, but I just wanted to give you a really fast, broad overview of homelessness in Anoka-Hennepin schools. Thank you.
Awesome, thank you, Carrie. Next up is Chief Brad Weiss from the Coon Rapids Police Department to kind of give us some local perspective. Brad Weiss began his employment with the city of Coon Rapids in 1995 as a patrol officer. Through his years of service to the citizens of Coon Rapids, he's held many positions before being appointed to the Chief of Police, easy for you to say, in 2011. Chief Weiss earned an Associate of Arts degree in law enforcement from North Hennepin Community College, a Bachelor of Arts in History from Augsburg College, and a Master of Arts in Leadership from the University of St. Thomas. Brad is a Coon Rapids High School graduate. And who, along with his family, continues to proudly reside in the community he serves. My partner, Chief Brad Weiss.
The only word he has had trouble spitting out is police. Leave it to the sheriff to do that. All right, if you take anything away from this, make sure you take away two things. Is one, the importance of treating the victims of sex trafficking as victims. And number two, I want you to not focus on geography. I'm here speaking on behalf of Coon Rapids because that's what I know. But if you're thinking it's a Coon Rapids issue, you've missed the point. All right, this knows no boundaries. You're going to see a little bit about the internet and how it works, and you'll understand that geographical message and that we have to really address this problem as a whole. I'm going to show the breaking free side, and I'm really just taking a tiny bit of thunder from Joy, who you'll hear from shortly on Breaking Free, but I'm doing this for a reason. Breaking Free has a promotional video that's listed on there, or there's a promotion for one of their videos. It's called A Night in the Life. It's a documentary that they've prepared. One of the featured players in that documentary is a Coon Rapids girl named Valentina. Valentina was formerly purchased by men, and she was a documented runaway in Coon Rapids at least 22 times. She had many other contacts with our police department in that time. And at this point, I would say those were missed opportunities for an intervention. Fortunately, she was able to save herself, and it wasn't in an undramatic way. She found herself to breaking free after being arrested as a part of a human trafficking sting. Her life was out of control when she was arrested on a warrant. She had been a passenger in a high-speed pursuit where the male with her threw a pistol out of the window. Pretty dramatic, powerful stuff. So what do we do here in Coon Rapids? I'll tell you what we do. We sting and arrest Johns. That's that demand piece. The money is the fuel, right? We have to address the money. If it's profitable, it will continue. We have to make human trafficking unprofitable. We investigate to find and intervene on behalf of the female victims. Those words are by choice. Intervene. 10 years ago, we would have said we're going to find and arrest prostitutes. We don't say that anymore. Words matter. The older I get, the more I understand how important the language matters, and we're getting there. Human Trafficking Forum, completely new vernacular, and I hope that that takes hold. We have a lot of work to do, and I'll show you in a minute. And then we partner, of course, with the Sheriff's Office to investigate major crimes. That's what we do. Okay, I'm going to be more of the blunt stuff. Actually, I want you to know what's on the internet. This is what Erotic Review looks like, their website. I'd initially thought about doing sort of an interactive thing so you could engage it in a personal way, but frankly, it was too much over the top. In the center, you can find yourself eroticreview.com. I'd encourage you to go there. As far as I can tell, no viruses are attached because they want to run themselves as a legitimate business. But you press right there, and you'll hear the Erotic Review's advertisement, and they describe themselves as actually, they compare themselves to Zagat, the restaurant review company, and it's for women. Now, the startling thing is up here is the number 1 million entries, 20,000 members, most of which are paying, so that they really understand who these people are. The frightening thing, as the sheriff mentioned before, is that if you're a member of this, you can make a connection to a specific person being offered for sale on the internet and can safely know that you won't get arrested unless that person gets arrested who's offering the service. You get what I'm saying? It basically creates a safe place to do prostitution, and we have to do something about it. And these people are paying a lot of money. This website is making a bunch of money, and as I'll say again, we have a lot to do to change our cultural norms. In fact, we have HBO that makes light of prostitution via a TV show. And those women that are on that TV show are somebody's daughter. All right, so our back page, our good friend back page. And I'm going to say to you, Despite the fact you're going to hear a lot about it, it would be short-sighted to think just take the page down. Because frankly, I tell you that I know that it would be unsuccessful, because before Backpage was Craigslist. Craigslist made a decision to stop selling people over its website, at least overtly, and then Backpage instantly appeared. If Backpage disappeared, there'd be a new one. It's deeper than that. It's addressing the people piece of this that we need to get at. So again, I want to do the local perspective on this. So up here is escort. All this busy web page stuff boils down to that little spot right up there called escort. This is one of our Coon Rapids goals. This was today. That's Coon Rapids search today. There were no matches found. And what that means to me is I don't want any ads of children for sale in Coon Rapids. I can't control the big universe of problems. It's huge. But I can affect what goes on in this city, and I say in my agency, in our town, that it's a priority to make sure that nobody thinks it's okay to sell somebody in Coon Rapids. And I'm not meaning to pick on another city, but I'm going to, because I can. In this case, it's Egan. This was today in Egan. Ad. Somebody's daughter's for sale. And then the other part, the last thing I'm going to tell you about Backpage is how easy it is, which makes it extra frightening, is that posting an ad can be free. Well, actually, it says it's free to post an ad, but it costs you to keep an ad up and going. So they actually do make money off of this. It's not like they're an innocent victim in this, where they're saying there's nothing they can do. But I will tell you that they put rules, posting rules, which mean a great deal. I won't post obscene material. I won't post a solicitation. I'm at least 18 years of age. Any post exploiting a minor in any way will be subject to criminal prosecution, it says. Continue. That's its screening. I told you the piece that we do attack the ad side, and we look at those as interventions, where we make sure that if somebody's selling themselves in Coon Rapids, we try to find who those kids and women are and intervene on their behalf, working with Breaking Free. However, we also do the John details, as I mentioned, where we're working on the demand piece. But I'm going to give you an overview, just a slight overview, that one of our detectives works the adult half. You already heard mention the name Detective Pat Carlson, who works the juvenile half in Coon Rapids. He's in the schools, and I'll tell you about him in a second. But these are just 2013. Monique, she was advertising on Backpage.com. The detective attached a review, which I won't share with you, online about activity. We conducted undercover operations and arrested her. She was forwarded to diversion through Breaking Free. So yes, arrested, because that's what we do, but we use arrest as a leverage to get them to Breaking Free, hopefully to change their lives. Brianna, this is, again, 2013, Backpage.com, In-Town Suites, one of the busiest and highly reviewed sex workers in the metro area that I was aware of. Rihanna, Craigslist, adult, history of being a runaway, drug user, working out of an apartment building, arrested and sent to Breaking Free. Haley, adult schizophrenic, among other mental illnesses, Backpage ad, arrested and referred to Breaking Free. We want to intervene with these women. Let's jump to juvenile. Detective Carlson, in February of 2010, signed a hold on a Coon Rapids High School student to get her from Fairview Hospital into the Linos shelter to get help. She admitted to selling herself online. She had joined 2 ninth grade Coon Rapids High School students. And actually, I'm going to back up. Selling herself online, she made a victim of herself. She unwittingly and foolishly victimized herself. And again, that's an important distinction in terms. I'd never say that she prostituted herself. She unwittingly made herself a victim, later to be victimized by others. In 2012, several members of our police department testified in a federal trial in Nashville after a Coon Rapids girl was being sold by Somali gang members. When Detective Carlson met her, it was in 2007 when she was 12 years old and she was already being sold then. Coon Rapids middle school student. I handled a runaway case involving a 12-year-old girl who ended up being gone for 1 year. She called her mother once, telling her that she was in a Minneapolis home with other girls and she was not supposed to use the phone. Then actually I'm going to cut to the chase here with the slide that you're looking at. It's very, very tiny, but up here, this young woman, the man standing next to her, his name is Chili. I'm not going to tell you who she is. And I'm not going to tell you who she is, not because she doesn't matter. What her name is actually matters a lot, but not in this context. There are people that love her and that she matters to, and she made a big mistake. Her mistake was when she was 18 years old, she put an ad in Backpage.com. Why? We don't know. We maybe would call her, a word might be a freelancer. She unwittingly and naively victimized herself until she met this man named Chili. Chili was a trafficker. Chili took her in. Chili would, quote, protect her. Chili put her to work. By the time we, Coon Rapids PD, intervened in 2012, the CVS pharmacy clerk said that she had been there every day of the week, so it was for 1 week straight, 3 hours at a time, where she went directly from the bathroom out to vehicles out in the parking lot, back to the bathroom to vehicles in the parking lot. We actually found her ad in Backpage that mentioned meeting at CVS Pharmacy. Again, using the internet to facilitate all this. She's the victim in this. And I think I can tell you that there's a positive end to that story, but frankly, she disappeared off of our radar for a while. But I recently heard good things that maybe she found her way back home. And I'd say basically that's it. As far as local police departments, the words I'm going to use, it's my new words, I just invented them just for this event here today, is pre-trafficking interventions. Okay, I just want to get away from the idea that because the word is all over the place, prostitute. Even the sheriff grumbled about, there was a news story where we talk about the victims, and yet somehow the news headline morphed into using the word prostitute, and we all agree that diminishes the victim. That word is a bad word that makes people feel like they're less, and these people aren't garbage. I'm going to finish with this last story. More than a year ago, this 18-year-old child unwittingly and naively victimized herself on Backpage. Only she wasn't even fortunate enough to have met a trafficker, as she surely would have eventually. She met a killer just across the river in Brooklyn Park. She was beaten to death with a hammer, her body stuffed into a car like garbage, and later found in southern Anoka County. In her case, I do want you to know and remember her name. It was Brittany Clardy, and she was somebody's beloved daughter. Thank you.
Powerful stuff. Thank you, Chief. Next up, we're going to have Joy Friedman, who is the Director of Women's Programs at Breaking Free. I had opportunity to meet Joy fairly early on in my own educational process, shortly after Detective Straczynski had forced my eyes open. And I can tell you she's been a real inspiration for me, and I know you're going to enjoy this next section. Joy knows firsthand the importance of the Breaking Free Women's Program. After being trafficked as a teen, and after 22 years of surviving the life, she entered Breaking Free as a client in 2001 and successfully completed the Breaking Free program. In May 2002, Ms. Friedman came on board as a full-time staff member at Breaking Free, and ever since then has proved to be an invaluable resource working as a case manager, outreach specialist, program manager, policy coordinator for the Offenders Program or the John School, and most currently, the Director of Women's Programming. Ms. Friedman has extensive experience in providing services to women who have been victimized in systems of prostitution. She is sought after public speaker and has provided numerous trainings and presentations on prostitution and sex trafficking as violence against women and girls, and serves as Breaking Free's primary liaison with the St. Paul Police Vice Unit and the FBI. It is my privilege to introduce another one of our partners and my friend, Joy Friedman.
Okay, they're giving me way too much credit here. Okay, I have issues. Okay, I need it to my mouth. Okay. Thank you, first off, for having us. I really want to say this is a community's issue. This is not a one person's issue. This is not a urban issue. This is all of our issue. Even if your child has not been involved in this, this does affect you. Because out here, there are predators preying on individuals, and they could care less where they come from, what color they are, whose child they are, and how they were brought up. They pay to do to them what they want to, and do not look at them as human beings. Breaking Free was established in 1996 by our founder and executive director, Vanita Carter. Vanita Carter saw the need for our program to open once Whispers, which was over in Minneapolis on the south side, closed. It was a drop-in center for women and girls that were out on the streets prostituting. They were victims of prostitution, and when they talk about that, the speakers before me, that is exactly what we are, is victims of this. Whether it's lack of knowledge, what have you, we got caught up in this. So when we put ourselves out there, as I've heard, it's the lack of education about what we're actually getting involved in. We're told there's a lot of money, it's a great life, and you'll be rich. You'll be famous, and everybody will know you and want to be around you. Well, unfortunately, that's not true. At Breaking Free, we provide a number of services, which happens to be housing. We know, first and foremost, before you can begin to rebuild your life, you need to know where you're going to lay your head. As we just saw homeless victims out in the street, make them definitely at risk for predators to prey upon. Now, within that first 48 hours that they spoke about, a youth is approached not only by a perpetrator as far as a seller, but they're also approached by a buyer. So one of the two will approach them within 48 hours. Last year alone, we worked with 510 victims. 100% of them were below poverty level. 80 to 90% were in need of safe, affordable housing. 69% were women and girls of color. 66% were minors dependents at the time of intake. 70% of them were from the Twin Cities or the urban area. 30% were from rural Minnesota. So this doesn't discriminate, as we said. We have international and domestic victims coming through our doors. Now, that's just the ones that we were able to do an intake on. I also do street outreach. You see our booth out there. My outreach team is here with me, Miss Robin and Miss Katie up there. They both have been tremendous at helping me get to the streets where the girls are, those that the police maybe have missed or that are sleeping in those homeless areas, and helping us recruit and let them know that there is a place they can come to that will not judge them. We are not blaming them. We do not care if they're still involved in it at the moment, because just like domestic violence, we know this is a process. If we cannot give her a safe place to stay, a job, and fulfill all her needs right there on the spot, she has to survive. As you heard, a lot of these youth are out to here on their own without any adult supervision. So if I can't give her what she needs, how do I expect her to stop doing what she's doing? So we talk about the need for help with buildings, apartments, monies, supplies, everything. If you don't know about Breaking Free, we've been here since 1996, and this is all we do. Sex trafficking hit the ground running, and now everybody wants to be involved. What I say personally as a survivor is sex trafficking is a nice word for prostitution. Prostitution has been here. It was here before I got involved at 15. I am 51. It took me till 37 to get out because of what happened to me. Had it not been for the program Breaking Free, I would have never looked at this in the manner that I do today. I'd have been one of those youth saying, I chose this, I caused this, and I'm okay with what's happening to me. When we look at the women and girls that come through our doors, we know there's a high rate of dysfunctional families happening. We know that sexual assault has happened to our kids, or they've been through sexual abuse before the age of 18 by a family member or a friend of the family. So it's not about the prostitution happened and that's what caused all this. Some of this is already going on before she even got to, or before he got to. I'm going to speak about women and girls because we work with 16-year-olds on up. The services needed are supportive housing, education, programming. We have advocacy services. We also have legal advocacy because our girls end up with records. And when you look at what you need to start rebuilding your life, you have to take a look at everything that is what we call barriers. If you have a record, who's hiring you, first off? So when you talk about getting out of the life, where do you go? If you have a record, who's giving you an apartment or a place to live? So we have to try to eliminate these barriers for our girls. So housing is a key piece. We have transitional and permanent housing for our women and girls. Public policy is going to legislation. We help our girls. We are survivor-driven and survivor-ran, meaning from our ED on down, the majority of the staff on our program and in our program are survivors. That says a lot. That says we'll hire. We educate. We send them to trainings. We get them the information they need to be able to do the services that we offer. Without breaking free, I don't know where I'd be right now with a career. And I'm a very intelligent individual. I know this. The women and girls that you see in the streets are very intelligent. They have to survive with murderers, rapists, drug dealers, and perverted people who do very perverted things. When we talk about the demand side, I really, really focus on that really hard. Why? Because you can arrest every trafficker there is. And as long as there's somebody out there that says they can buy a human being, this will continue and they will move on to the next one. So the seller is one part of it. The buyers, we need to hold them accountable. As I just was talking to Miss Carey, I said, I lived here for 8 years with a guy that bought me on a regular basis, right off Hanson Boulevard. And I thought that was funny when I got off because it triggered something, and I was like, wow, I was here for 8 years with a trick who took care of me and my kids. This has been happening, and this was in the 90s. Education and training is very important for our women and girls. Why? Because we have 6th grade reading level there from our girls that walk through the door. They haven't had a chance to go to school, complete school, or even be enrolled in any kind of peers, social events, none of that. So proms, graduation, they've never experienced any of that. We have a core group called Sisters of Survival. It's a 14-week curriculum which helps our women and girls get educated on the dynamics of prostitution. What exactly happens in this lifestyle? How you got recruited. Little girls don't daydream that one day when I grow up, I want to be a victim of this. And if they are dreaming and daydreaming that, something's going on. There's something wrong with that. At Breaking Free, we call it what it is. It's an extension of slavery. Modern-day slavery is what it is. Even if a girl's okay with being bought, you cannot sell a human being. It's against the law. So to see the websites that we see posting and having these little spots for you to sell slaves, how dare they? Isn't that a violation? Strip clubs, legal establishments where girls, your daughters, can get on stage in front of strangers, take their clothes off, and they hide behind adult entertainment. Are you okay with your child? Because that's what they are. I have a 29 and a 30-year-old. Those are still my children. They are not okay to be on stage for anyone to degrade in that manner. But yet we legalize it. So we say it's okay to do prostitution here as long as you pay taxes and as long as we control it. But you cannot go out on a street corner and do it, or you're a criminal and you go to jail. We talk about the stages. We talk about the initiation. We talk about the sexual exploitation piece, the recruitment, initiation, and the enslavement. We talked about already the malls and the places where you go and find them. Libraries, schools. And right away, I just need people to understand. The pimps, the traffickers, because that's the nicer name for it, they recruit kids in the areas where they're at. So libraries, a big pimp's not going to walk in with a feather cat and a Cadillac, big jewels all over him and a long gold necklace, and he's not always black, which everyone thinks that. It's a stereotype. I'm going to send a kid that looks just like you into the library to study next to you if I'm a pimp, because I know you're not going to talk to the big bad wolf. I'm also going to send a female if I'm trying to recruit a female, because see, you're likely to talk to a young lady of your statute and that looks like you before you talk to me. So the methods that they're using nowadays is really, really cunning. They have to stay ahead of the law enforcement, so therefore, pimps will even have girls that are working regular jobs. They're in foster care. They're actually in the system working because they need to find out information. And pimps will have 1 or 2 of their girls having legit jobs in areas, seeing what's going on to stay a step ahead. We talk about how they're recruited, and we've gone through that, so I'm not going to keep on with the same stuff. I really just want you to understand that no place is exempt for a pimp to be. There could be one amongst us here to stay updated on what we know here in Coon Rapids. We don't know. They're everywhere, and don't think it's just in the cities. Like I said, out here, it's happening. It's been happening. Where do you think we get our Johns from? Suburbs. They come from the suburbs. I run John School. We've had over 1,000 guys come through there, from brain surgeons, doctors, dentists, lawyers, law enforcement even, judges, taxi drivers, brain surgeons, my goodness. And they get busted in a sweep buying an undercover cop who they thought was a girl involved in prostitution. When they come to John School, we have survivors come up and talk. In this John School, they sit all day to learn about their role in this. Now, we also said that having John School was an educational piece for the buyer. Why do you want to train the buyer, people said? Well, we had to take a look at, what if they were generational buyers? What if their fathers, grandfathers, grandfather said, this is how we're going to make you a man. We're going to buy you a woman. And this was a handed-down tradition. We're going to take you out and make you a man today and get you a girl. And they bought someone. Why would we expect this man to know different if this is what he's been shown? Domestic violence, the same tactics of power and control are used on women and girls in prostitution that are used in women and girls that are involved in domestic situations. The power and control is what it's all about. The first customer, sometimes a lot of our pimps will pay someone to go act like a customer or a buyer, and he'll treat the girl really nice. So while he's trying to recruit her and groom her and tell her, it's not going to take that much, you ain't got to do nothing, all you got to do is just let him talk to you. He wants to take you out to eat, and we're going to get paid. And remember, he's not a pimp to her. That's her sweetheart. That's her boo. That's her daddy. That's her man. That's her boyfriend. She likes him. She loves him. She don't even know what love is yet. But right now, he's the best thing. And the more you try to tell her how wrong that person is and he's not good for you and all that, the more you will push her into his arms. Because, see, he's already told her that's what you're going to say. Because you don't understand her. He will brainwash her. So I really encourage you parents out here who have youth in your life, for you adults who may be older siblings of youth, talk to them. And if they were to come to you today and tell you they were involved in this life, ask your question, how would you respond? Would they be safe to come talk to you about it? Would you judge them? How would you handle it? Fathers, mothers. It doesn't say that you're doing a bad job as a parent. What it says is something's going on with your kid. Peer pressure in school today is so hard for our kids. Fitting in, having everything that the next person has. Our kids are put in situations that pressure them to make these decisions without all the information, the facts about this. We call it a lifestyle for a reason. There's a lot more to it. The extreme physical abuse and stuff may not happen at the beginning, but it does happen over the course of time. Just like domestic violence, it didn't happen at the beginning. But next thing you know, he smacked you. And then he said, I'm so sorry, I got upset, I'm stressed out. So you just minimized it and said, okay, I understand that. He's not a bad guy. You weigh that 80% good that he had versus that 20% bad. He's counting on that. So that honeymoon stage is what we call it. And not every girl is drug addicted also, let me say that. We've got a big percentage of our youth right now that are coming in that are not drug addicted. Drugs comes 9 times out of 10, they'll come after they've been involved in prostitution. Why? Because they need to medicate what they just went through. When you hear 20 to 40 guys a day, strangers, that these kids are having sex with, whether it's for a place to stay, a pair of jeans, an iPhone, or just because they wanted to make their boyfriend happy, that's all irrelevant to us. The fact is that it's happening. And these kids are being held accountable by being arrested until the shift came and law enforcement got involved and as they said, opened their eyes to the fact that these kids are victims. Those adult women we work with, they started at that 12 to 14-year-old age. I was raped at 15 by a pimp and held captive in a basement for 24 hours. I've been beaten with 2x4s, metal pipes, and baseball bats. I didn't ask for any of that, and no one informed me that that's what this lifestyle would entail. Had I known all these things, I'd have stayed away from them big bad guys that I was so told about. My brothers, I come from 6. They told me about the individuals who would recruit me and talk crazy to me, and I didn't believe them because I thought I knew more. Remind you, we're teenagers. Teenagers, think about when you was a teenager. Your parents didn't know nothing. They couldn't tell us nothing, and if we told them that lie, we told them, we're going to Sally's house, we're going to Tim's house, and we were totally at a party at someone else's house, getting drunk, sobering up, getting home, making sure we had gum, and everything else so mom and dad didn't know where we were. We all can relate to that. The power and control wheel is something I just wanted to show you because it is the same thing. They minimize it, rationalize it, it continues. Same tactics. These are the normal signs that you see when you see sex trafficking. I just want to tell people that's not reality. Common images, that's what you see. You see them on TV, you see them everywhere. Reality for our girls before this shift has happened, they went to jail. They were arrested. When I first started training law enforcement some years ago, I actually asked them, how come you can arrest the women but you can't arrest the guys? He said they had rights. John Vandermeer was the one that first told me that. I was like, they got rights? What do you mean? And that was like, they could not arrest them for going around the block over and over again. But they could arrest me for walking that block over and over again with loitering with intent to do prostitution. How did you know I was intending to do it? The invisible chains are what keep our women and girls trapped. Just like Stockholm Syndrome, there's a relationship built with the abuser. And she does believe everything he tells her. The invisible chains are shame, addiction, threats of violence. Trauma bond is built, like I said, abuse, rape, threats to the family, that's very real. My pimp actually told me that if I told anybody at 15 that he would go to my mother's house, cut her head off, and give it to me on a platter. I had seen him beat so many women that I really believed he would do that. So I stayed quiet. Homelessness is definitely a big piece. Sexual torture, the abuse, all that, these are trapped in our heads. Every guy that buys us is here permanently. The acts they do to us is here permanently. I'm out 14 years, but the damage that has been done to me is permanent. I don't know if I know what a healthy relationship is or if I'll ever have one because of my own issues that I have with it. There's a sound, a smell, anything, a fragrance can remind me of one of those hundreds of thousands of guys over 22 years that I had to deal with. So when you talk about getting out and trying to be normal, whatever normal is, we all have issues in here. Yours just might not be as severe as mine, but we all have them. It's okay. Physical, psychological, social, and legal issues are definitely what our girls deal with, and that's what Breaking Free works on. We try to find results for each one of the issues that walk through the door. And every girl is different. Every story is different. But the commonality that we all have is someone has paid us to do to us what they want to. The act itself is what we are talking about when we say sex trafficking. 71% of our girls have a post-traumatic stress disorder when they come in. 75 to 85 victims of sexual assault. And the list goes on and on with the issues that we're facing. We know one thing, if we know nothing else, 100% of them are someone's daughter. So if you learn nothing else here today, just know, how would you want us, society, to treat your child if they happen to become a victim of this lifestyle? For more information, you can stop at our table and get it. You can go to our website and check it out. Time here has made it so that we're going to cut it short here just to stay on time. Thank you very much.
Everyone was kind of warned that we were going to try to keep a close eye on the clock, but honestly, I'm sitting back there listening to Joy thinking, I think everybody will be okay with staying till 9. I couldn't possibly want to stop your stories and your ability to educate us and bring us up to speed. Very impressive stuff. And I'm going to try to get us...
I'm sorry.
No worries.
Those are all real people you just saw that we've dealt with. That's where it stops.
Very good. Well, again, thank you. Awesome. Next up, we're going to have our Anoka County Attorney, Tony Palumbo, is going to talk about the safe harbor laws and some of the areas that impact his office. Tony Palumbo was sworn in as the Anoka County Attorney in January of 2011, along with me. We became partners at that point. Prior to taking office, Tony served as an Assistant County Attorney from 1979 to 2010. Tony was named Volunteer of the Year 2006 by the Lawyers Board of Professional Responsibility In 2010, received the Public Attorney Award of Excellence from the Minnesota State Bar Association and named Lawyer of the Year in 2013 by Minnesota Lawyer. Tony grew up in St. Paul and received his BA from the College of St. Thomas and his JD from William Mitchell College of Law in 1979. Our county attorney partner, Tony Palumbo.
Thank you, Sheriff. Truly is a partnership. Our both offices have worked very well. You know, one of the ways that human traffickers or sex traffickers control kids that are caught in this is to threaten them with prosecution. They say, hey, who's going to listen to you? If you go to the cops, you're going to get turned in. You're going to be prosecuted, not me. I'm going to be gone. Well, thankfully, a group of advocates, understanding this, went to the legislature and got passed a couple of things called the Safe Harbor Laws. And the Safe Harbor Laws, passed in 2011, 2013, said that actually they treat sexually exploited kids who are under 16 as a victim. They are not delinquent. They are not the kids. They are the victim of sexual exploitation. And what they did is those kids that are 16 and 17, they said that if they are caught in this kind of a situation and there is an arrest for it, they will be diverted into a program to deal with their particular issues. They will not be treated as delinquents. They will be diverted into a program. And that certainly includes sexually exploited youth and sex trafficking victims in child protection statutes also. So what that means is kids who are caught in this vicious cycle are now being treated as kids who need help. And so the system has changed its focus a little bit from treating them as part of the problem to treating them as people who need help and going after the people who are the real problems, the people facilitating this. The penalties for commercial sexual abusers, that's the term now under the statute for pimps, commercial sexual abusers or johns. For adults, if you engage in prostitution with an adult, it's a $250 minimum fine to a $750 minimum fine or maximum fine. And even if you are indigent, as we see in the courts every day, people who claim I can't pay a fine, I'm indigent, there is a $100 minimum they have to pay. So they are required, and if they can't pay it, they're going to work it off. So they don't get off scot-free just because they don't have money. The law in this area, if you engage or hire for sex a kid under 13 years of age, it's a 20-year felony or a $40,000 fine. If the child is between 13 and 16 years of age, it's a 10-year felony with a $20,000 fine. And if the child is between 16 and 18 years of age, it's a 5-year felony with a $10,000 fine. And part of that safe harbor law also was to create a victim-centered response to sexually exploited youth, using recommendations from the Safe Harbor for Sexually Exploited Youth pilot project. So in other words, the state, through its agencies, are working with people who work with these kids to come up with some solutions, how we're going to address this problem as we go forward. And I certainly think it's a step forward. And what is our office, the county attorney's office? You know, this is part of the law and order portion. I get to be the order portion, right? We work with our law enforcement partners, both at the county, the local, the state, and the federal. And we all do work very closely together. If we have trafficking cases that are crossing state lines, you bet I'll be on the phone to the U.S. Attorney's Office. I'll be talking to them about it. Our law enforcement partners who do tremendous amount of good work in this area, putting in the number of hours, I can't tell you how much time they put in to try and address this problem. And they do very, very good work. And I'm certainly going to echo Joy's comments about, you know, we have to prosecute to eliminate the facilitation of the demand, but in reality, it's the education and the community outreach which is going to eliminate the supply. And that, after all, is what we're here for tonight. Thank you.
We're now going to transition into our panel discussion. At this time, I'd ask our panelists to come up and grab a seat at the table. You've already met Carrie Schaaf, Chief Wise, Joy Friedman, and Tony Palumbo, but we also have asked some other experts to join us for the panel discussion so that you can leave here tonight with your questions answered, and honestly, so we know that your key takeaways, what you wanted to get out of this, you will be able to obtain. To forewarn everybody, I do plan to push the pause button at 7:30 and let people go who are on a tight time crunch out of respect for your time. But in the meantime, we're going to proceed with the panel. Joining the panel, or the members that you've already met, is Commander Brian Padani, to my immediate left. He is the Anoka County Sheriff's Office Criminal Investigations Division Commander. Brian Padani has served with the Anoka County Sheriff's Office for over 17 years, with his last 8 years as the commander in the Criminal Investigation Division, or CID, which oversees the major crimes detectives, the crime scene unit, fraud prevention investigation unit, and the Anoka-Hennepin Drug and Violence Crimes Task Force. CID is responsible for all investigations of death, felonious child abuse, and sex crimes in Anoka County. In this capacity, he was instrumental in forming the Anoka County Human Trafficking Task Force. Commander Padani holds an associate's degree in law enforcement, a bachelor's degree in police science, and a master's degree in public safety administration, and is a graduate of the Northwestern University's School of Police Staff and Command. He is a member of the Anoka County Child Abuse Committee, Child Mortality Review Board, and a former board member of the Minnesota Sex Crimes Investigators Association. And a Coon Rapids High School graduate. Next up, you heard the name earlier tonight, Detective Tom Straczynski with the Anoka County Sheriff's Office Criminal Investigations Division. Tom Straczynski has been with the Anoka County Sheriff's Office for 20 years, 14 of those years as a major crimes detective in the Criminal Investigations Division. He has specialized training in sexual violence with an emphasis on child sexual exploitation, human trafficking, and conducting undercover operations. Detective Straczynski has conducted well over 1,000 investigations related to the sexual exploitation of children. Yes, in Anoka County. For his efforts in investigating human trafficking, Detective Straczynski was co-awarded with his partner, who's also here tonight, Detective Mike Shanson, the 2013 State of Minnesota Sex Crime Investigators Association Investigator of the Year. He's also a member of both the Anoka County Human Trafficking Task Force and the Gerald Vick Human Trafficking Task Force. And lastly, we have, but certainly not least, we have Detective Brian Hill, Anoka County Sheriff's Office Criminal Investigations Division. Brian joined the Sheriff's Office in September of 2000 and has been a detective with CID since June 2008. His primary area of expertise is digital forensics, and he is a use of force and firearms instructor and a computer and mobile device forensics examiner, investigator trained by the Minnesota BCA, the FBI, and the Secret Service. Detective Hill is a member of the Minnesota Internet Crimes Against Children Task Force, the International Law Enforcement Educators and Trainers Association, and the Highway Technology Crime Investigators Association, or HTCIA. He also serves on the board of directors at the HTCIA as the first vice president. Detective Hill has trained law enforcement, prosecutors, domestic violence and sexual assault advocates, corrections, judges, and others working within the criminal justice system in Minnesota on technology abuse and technology safety issues. He served in the Air Force Reserves from 1997 to 2006 in the 96th Airlift Squadron and was deployed from March 2003 to March 2005 in the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan. Detective Hill was recently invited to testify at a hearing on Wednesday, June 4th, at the Senate Judiciary Subcommittee on Privacy, Technology, and the Law. He will be called as an expert on Senator Franken's bill, the Location Privacy Protection Act of 2014 in Washington, D.C. Detective Hill. As I said, we want this form to meet your needs. To ensure that we do that, we wanted to have some interactive options for you as well. So if anyone is interested in asking a question, if we can get our assistants up with the microphones, please. We're going to ask that you would just shoot your hand up. We'll either bring you a microphone, or if you'd rather, if you're more comfortable with it, you can text your question to the number on the screen. And a member of our, one of our assistants will be happy to read the question for you. Having said that, let's begin. And over here.
Thank you for being here. Of that 8,000 to 10,000 figure, anybody but Joy answer this. How many are male, young males? I know you work with women. And my second question is, when you know someone who fits this profile but won't surface, is there anything you can do?
There is a number of male involved in juvenile prostitution and sexually exploited. The number is hard to explain Because the resources out there there just aren't as many resources and knowledge, and due to shame issues and so forth, we're still working with the male youth to try to get them to come more forward. But unfortunately, the larger number is females.
I think coupled with that too is, this is obviously a very underreported crime from our standpoint. And I think the numbers of male victims are more underreported than even the numbers of female victims because of the associated stigmas with both. And what was the second part of the question?
Someone that fits the profile, but they haven't surfaced and perhaps won't. What can you do?
You want to go
I didn't hear.
ahead?
If you have someone that fits the profile but hasn't surfaced, what can you do for them?
There are a large number of resources out there right now. There's several out here in the lobby that can assist in those types of issues. On law enforcement end of it, like our sheriff said and so forth, our number one priority is to save any child that's being victimized out there. We would obviously, if we had knowledge of a child being exploited in any way out there, we would reach out to them and get them assistance immediately without even, the criminal investigation is not necessarily our first objective. Our first objective is to locate, identify, and get assistance for any exploited youth.
Just a suggestion, if you come across a youth, don't ask them if they're being sex trafficked. They're not going to respond to that. What I suggest is that when it comes to what we do is tell our youth, here's some information. If you happen to know anyone, here's some phone numbers for them, because maybe you'll run into somebody who might need this help, and could you help us get this information out? That way you're not putting them on the spot, you're not making them feel shamed about it, or that you may know, so that they don't get help.
There was an article written by a man in Virginia with the title "Legalize Prostitution." He was saying, "Let men be men." How come nothing gets done about people like him?
Why would we want to legalize the selling of people?
Well, he was saying, there was an article written in Virginia with the title "Legalize Prostitution." And he was saying, "Let men be men." How come nothing gets done about people like him?
These are people. Sex is not a right for any individual. Sex is not something that a man has a right to. It's a human being. It's not, a human being's not for sale. They don't have a right to have sex.
Well, and if I understood the question, I mean, I think a part of that was, why is he allowed to have that statement, right? I mean, why is he allowed to say that or to think that? And we do still have freedom of speech, and it kind of goes back to what we kind of heard about earlier. Sometimes law enforcement's hands are tied because sometimes the rights, all our constitutional rights are designed to protect us as a nation and all of our citizens, to ensure that our rights aren't infringed upon. And in this case, his right to free speech allows him that opportunity to express his opinion. And although I would hope 99.9% of our society would disagree with him, I'm afraid the number isn't that high, and he does have the right to have that opinion.
Minnesota was just awarded the Super Bowl, and there's been studies done that they bring in prostitutes and human traffickers, and they bring in more money than all of the Super Bowl ads combined. How can we start combating this issue and letting the people know that will be visiting our state that we just ain't going to deal with it?
We've already begun ramping up for that, believe it or not. Anytime there's a major event that comes to town, whether it's a convention, a sporting event, anything along those lines, we see a substantial increase in trafficking operations. We're working collaboratively, not only within Anoka County, but with the Gerald Vick Task Force and other law enforcement, and the FBI are already begun planning and ramping up for that, particularly for our enforcement efforts, but also our advocacy and awareness about the issue too. But there is certainly a correlation in any time we have a major event in town, whether it's like I said, a convention, a sporting event, anything along those lines, we always see a direct correlation and a rise and a spike in the numbers that we already have. So.
It's absolutely true. The Federal Reserve estimates there'll be between 25 and 50 million in counterfeit bills that'll pass through Twin Cities within that weekend. So this kind of a thing may be good for some businesses, but it certainly is not good for other types. I can put it that way.
I'm going to grab one of the questions that were sent to our inbox here. It says, are you seeing this as a cultural thing with new cultures coming into the United States?
This is not a cultural thing. This was here before people started coming. It's not about crossing borders. 90% of the victims that we have in the United States are homegrown right here. Almost 100% of the buyers are from the United States. This is not about other countries coming here, other cultures coming here. This is happening. The majority of the men that come to our John School happen to be Caucasian. So if this is a cultural thing, then it's happening with the Caucasians.
Let's see. How much does the offender program cost, and how effective is it?
Out of the John School that we have, the girls have named it John School. It's the offender prostitution program, and it costs the guys $750 to come to this class one time. But when we talk about the damage that's done to the women is permanent, that's just a mere drop. And all that money goes back to the victims in our program to help them and their children. And as far as success rate goes, from Ramsey County law enforcement, the Vice Unit has kept track of the Johns that have been arrested in Ramsey County. They've had a 2% recidivism rate since our school's been going, and it's been going since 1999, and over 1,000 guys have come to that class. We've had guys actually donate money back to us after it. We've had wives come in and speak at our John School because they were thankful that they got educated. So that John School has really been a successful thing, and it's helped get the guys. Now, we don't know if they're coming to Anoka, okay, but we know they're not in Ramsey County because of the John School.
I have a question for the county attorney's office. You said between the 16 and 17-year-olds, you have a referral service. Could you explain some more on that, please?
You mean as far as the safe harbor? Is that what you're talking about? Yeah. We tend to, between the 16 and 17-year-olds, we will not treat them as delinquents. We put them into a diversion program. What that means is as part of a juvenile court action, they will go and get services as opposed to going through the criminal/delinquency route. So in other words, they will get with counseling. They will get, if they have chemical dependency issues, they will deal with that. If they have homeless issues, so they will have their needs addressed through the criminal justice system, but not as someone who is going to be incarcerated. They're through the criminal justice system simply to get them the needs, get their needs addressed. So,
hi,
okay.
I was curious, you talked about how the best way to curb this is to kind of take the money out of it, the fact that it's not until people stop buying. What about like having a website where you publicly post pictures? I mean, they have no problem going online to shop for someone to buy. Maybe if they knew their face was going to be on the internet and people were going to be able to know that they've been buying people, maybe that would be a deterrent, especially when you talk about a lot of these guys, they're doctors, lawyers, they got a lot to lose if people know what they're doing. I mean, I just think it's something to consider.
Ramsey County and St. Paul do that. If there's also a publication that floats through Anoka County at several stores that have all the booking photos of everybody arrested in the Twin Cities. So their mugshots and names are out there in the public eye with their crimes.
Yeah, and just to expand on that, there are actually some private websites that are out there right now that upload all of our booking photos every day. And so it's kind of an interesting situation because I'm challenged with the way they do it, but at the same time, in these situations, I love it because not only do they broadcast all the pictures, here's the part I have a little bit of a personal conflict with. They're willing to take your picture off their website if you're willing to send them a check.
Yep. That's a big problem because these buyers can afford to buy. Right. They can afford to buy. By the time the police have busted them, we don't know how many women and girls they have bought already for how many years. So this money that we're, like in John School, it's only a drop in the bucket. Ramsey County does do it. There's a big thing in Chicago. Some of this is about you looking, because it is public record. It's you being aware when you're surfing, surf to see how many police arrests, in prostitution arrests in your county, in your city, what have you, and see who's being arrested, because it's public knowledge, a lot of it.
In social media craze, how are platforms of Facebook, Snapchat, Twitter being leveraged?
They're being leveraged every day on every app that's available. That's how they get, some of the smarter ones are getting into your home and talking to your children. Every game that's available on the App Store or the Play Store, whichever platform you are using, all have some sort of chat feature inside them, whether it's Words with Friends or any of these, Clash with Clans, whatever game your kids may be playing, there's always a chat feature in there, and they'll start chatting these kids up because they know who's playing, and they eventually strike up a conversation with enough of them, they get enough information on them, they then redirect them to either a third-party app or to some sort of website like Skype and get to talk to them that way, and then eventually arrange a meet.
I was just wondering, throughout the document, I heard something about commercial sex, and I was just wondering, what exactly is the percentage of females that are being prostituted and sold for sex trafficking that you see in porn videos or whatever? Porn videos, I was just wondering, what is the percentage of the girls in the videos? Are they actually being sex trafficked or sold?
Well, you just heard about the girl in Stillwater that blew her face, or that shot herself with a shotgun, correct?
Yes.
Now, there's a couch video, or couch casting, I think it's called. There's a lot of porn. The porn industry is legal, unfortunately. But we have girls that come in our agency, actually, that have been involved in the porn industry and talk about the violence that happens to them in that. And they are victims of it. They once, again, have been lured into saying, I'll make you a model, you'll be a movie star, what have you. But then once they're there, the money's flashed in front of them, and circumstances and situations can cause them to have to go through with it. Just like dancing, you don't know that you have to take all your clothes off till you get there, and they say they're not gonna pay you till you do. Some of the girls have told us they've had to do repeat acts of sex, and you got a producer calling cut every time. There's nothing wonderful about that life, is what's coming straight from their mouth. It's violence, it's repeat violence. The body has not been designed to endure all the violence that you've seen in porn movies. They are victims.
Thank you.
My question is for Carrie. I'm wondering if the kids, like the 69 kids that are identified here at Coon Rapids High School, do they get any type of information on traffickers? Are they educated on the dangers of trafficking and kind of given an idea of what to look for?
Yep, so we are being more intentional as the year's wrapping up to do more education on sex trafficking. I'm the homeless liaison for the district, but every building has what's called a homeless education lead. So in all my programs, I have usually a social worker. So that's kind of the point person for the building. So here it's Miss Patton. And she works one-on-one, we identify, and then in my office we also have a homeless youth and families liaison that can provide extra support, and then we are partnering with Hope for Youth, and we use their street outreach workers. So we're trying to wrap support services around those youth. We're going to be more intentional now that we're partnering in our part of the county with other counties. Our navigator is Breaking Free, so we're going to establish some more specific partnerships and referral processes for Breaking Free. When we have a young person that we know, or if we're concerned about a young person, we can pull in the experts to provide those supports. Great question.
I'm going to ask a few, they're piling in. Regarding hotel motel training, are there incentives, disincentives for reporting or not reporting suspected activity?
Unfortunately, there's not an incentive for them to report other than the pressure we put on in investigations. There are certain state laws that require them to provide information on people who are staying there, so that there are certain things that we can do with the hotels if we have knowledge. We do have hotels that work with us that voluntarily contact us and pass on information. There are a few hotels that refuse to do that. The situation is that we'll have to we monitor those hotels ourselves, and then we take action as necessary.
I'm going to follow that up with what legal actions would happen or take place if an adult comes forward. As soon as I get another one, it moves it a line. If an adult comes forward as being abused as a child. So the question is, what legal actions would happen or take place if an adult comes forward as being abused as a child?
I guess I want to make sure I'm understanding correctly. If they're saying someone who is a a suspect or something,
You
or
know
even
what
if
I
they're a
just read.
victim, regardless of the, if someone makes a disclosure of an abuse as a child, we can always do an investigation on that if it's within the statute of limitations. In Minnesota, this goes back to the early 80s. So anything that's happened since then, assuming we have jurisdiction in it, law enforcement as a whole, we do have the authority to investigate that and refer that for potential charges. Every year in Anoka County alone, the Criminal Investigations Division investigates about 600 sexual assault cases. So many of those are delayed for not only weeks and months, but years. So we do have potential legal remedies, but more importantly, a lot of time is to help them move on as far as getting services that they need, whether it be counseling or providing referrals for sexual assault counseling and things like that. So hopefully I answered that correctly. So.
I have a question concerning one of my old friends. She actually had recently come to me saying that she was being abused by a boyfriend, and I was wondering if there were anything, or if there was anything I could do, because she doesn't want her boyfriend to get in trouble, and I want to help her as much as I can.
I don't know if you're in high school, or I can't see you. You look like you're in high school, maybe. So I don't know if your friend's in high school. I would say, is there a safe adult within the school that she could go to, and maybe you could go with her? A school counselor, social worker, principal, coach, someone within that building, and start there?
She really doesn't trust anyone.
Right, that's a big thing. So maybe if you talk to her about, let's just go talk to somebody, and there is mandated reporting. So if there are things that are shared, it will have to get reported, and the person you talk to might share that with you before you start talking. But I think maybe if you go alongside with her, or maybe you could gather some resources and provide them to her, like Joy talked about, sharing those resources for Breaking Free, for Alexander House, for Hope for Youth. Share those resources so she has them.
Thank you.
Thanks for being a good friend.
You had talked about the hotels. Is there any type of legislation or anything that could maybe change? Like, some of the hotels have hourly rates. To me, that seems like maybe a good place for people to go. My other question along with that is, are you educating local businesses to help recognize maybe people that are victims of this, as well as Johns and other people that are maybe coming into their business, kind of like the CVS video that or images you showed? I mean, the employee obviously saw something unusual. Are we doing anything to educate businesses?
I'll start with the last one first. Yeah, we do the education with the hotels, and we do the education throughout the community with all types of different businesses, all types of community organizations, the different organizations that businesses belong to that the sheriff speaks to on a regular basis. He passes on and gives presentations to these business owners specifically to this type of information. There aren't and hasn't been any new laws relating to hotel-motel transactions. The laws that are still out there are pretty specific, but the information they still have to provide is, they have to provide a photo identification, they have to provide a name, and they have to provide license plates of vehicles that show up in there, and those have to be provided to us at any request. But as of new legislation, I mean, there's still data privacy and issues to deal with. I mean, we don't want information on people that aren't committing crimes, but if we develop probable cause and so forth, we're able to get to that information.
Can I just add that there is a list of hotels who choose not to show porn? So if you're looking at a hotel to get, or a convention to host an event you're having, you can look online to see which hotels choose not to show porn, and that's just step one, supporting those businesses who are taking that step.
I'm going to jump in here, a couple more. Do you have anyone that does this type of program at the schools? And if not, why?
As far as educating, I'm not sure if you're talking about educating on sex trafficking or what the question was. We are looking at next year doing some large-scale awareness for staff and for students at the secondary levels. And this is step one. making sure that we understand as a community, and then we're going to do more staff training and awareness. There isn't a specific sex trafficking advocate or anything within our buildings. We are making sure that our homeless education leads and our social workers and administration understand warning signs and process and support, but there isn't a specific person hired for that. But I, as a homeless liaison, am working to coordinate partners, and we will be partnering with Breaking Free to do more education.
And you, the parents, you guys can speak about how wanting this in your school for your kids especially, because we can't get in schools because they say, the parents say that they don't want that in the school for their kid to be knowing about that. But people say, well, how old should your kid be when you tell them? Well, think about how old the predators are buying 12 to 14, but we've seen as young as 8-year-old recruited into this, so education is power.
On that note right there, I'm wondering what's the frequency, especially in Anoka County, that you see children under the age of 10 that are being followed or being abducted and brought into the sex trafficking? Speaking from someone who's got a daughter under 10, that's a big concern to me, and I want to know if there are people like canvassing the neighborhoods that are looking specifically for little kids just in residential areas. Is that something that you see?
Are you asking how many children under age 10 are getting involved in human trafficking?
Yeah, I mean, do you see that in Anoka County?
Well, we see sexual violence against children under age 10, but human trafficking, no, we have not seen that.
Okay.
And remember, it's not canvassing neighborhoods, it would be internet too, so.
Right, I understand.
And that's grooming.
My name is Patrick, and I want to say thank you to all of you in law enforcement and in the courts and others for bringing this forum to be. It should have happened 30 years ago, these forums. I encourage you all to expand this to a much greater extent. My question to you is that even though this is an exploitation of many people, young women, children, young boys, my question is human harvesting, people that are being taken, exploited for organ harvesting.
Yep. There's 3 things. They have labor trafficking, organ trafficking, and sex trafficking. There is a lot going on black market-wise, and as law enforcement has already stated, there is just not enough funding for them to stay on top of all of that. This is also underground, so it's not as easy. You know, the groundwork that has to be done and all the hours and man hours that have to be put in just to track one person, and the movement is very, very all over. You can't catch a shoot. You know, they say it's easier to shoot. You can't, what is it? You can't shoot a moving target or whatever you call it. It's a hard thing to shoot as a moving target. I'm not a hunter. But it is. It's so underground and it's so orchestrated and everything's already done by the police. By the time the police get an investigation done, they don't even know where they're going from there because it's already moved. It takes 2 seconds. It's underground. It's prearranged. They've already got it together. They went out and got them. So by the time the cops get it and get their warrants and everything else, that's over. So it is hard.
Sorry, I just have to add something. I think it's really important we talk about education and being aware, but we also need to talk to our elected officials. We need to be mindful that the traffickers, these people, the pimps, the Johns, they have all this money and they're ahead of the game. We need to make sure that we're investing in our community and in our law enforcement. So we need to be talking to our elected officials, and we need more than 2 deputies, more than 2 investigators within departments. We need to have more resources within our community. So I challenge our community to make sure that we are reaching out to our elected officials so that we can support our amazing law enforcement who are trying to do all this hard work on very limited dollars and limited hours.
Has there ever been kids that have been born to be in sex traffic? Like little kids that have been raised and taught how to do it and then been sold to others when they were like, let's say like 3 or over?
We have generational prostitution that comes in, and I'm a survivor of generational prostitution as well. There are girls that were born into families where prostitution and pimping is what happens in the family, and it's been a carried down tradition. So therefore, your job is to forget one of these roles in the family, and either you're going to recruit the girls, you're going to be one of the girls eventually, or you're going to be the driver of some sort. But yeah, it's all just like any job, a doctor, lawyer, they want their kids to be doctors and lawyers. Same thing happens in prostitution and this lifestyle, it rotates.
A lot of times also on that topic, we are running into where the female victim prostitutes are being held against their will with the use of their own children. So we've recently had a case where our trafficker was impregnating as many of his prostitutes and as many of the girls as he could, and he would use those children to get those girls to work, and then his plan down the road, we assume, would have been to continue that process because he had already been going at it for 10 years.
In regards to internet sites, are sugar daddy websites considered sex trafficking?
I'm not familiar with that site. If they're referring to websites in general, as far as sex trafficking websites, most aren't categorized that way, and they know it, and that's why they target some of these websites as far as trying to victimize some of these kids, because they know that's where they're going to go, either to socialize, especially like Facebook and Twitter and some of that stuff. Is they know where the kids are going to go, and that's where they, basically perpetrate and go on and look for them.
And the other thing about the names of websites, there are so many websites that are developing every day that it's almost virtually impossible for any group of law enforcement, even with our computer experts and so forth, to keep track of the number of websites that are out there which are being used and exploited by these types of individuals.
We're all fighting for the microphone now, but to tackle that a little bit. But, we talked a little bit about Backpage tonight, and there's hundreds of ads posted every day on Backpage in Minnesota alone. And to try to be proactive with that, with the resources that law enforcement currently has, is virtually impossible. The only good thing we have going for us with Backpage is they are cooperative when we do request information and fairly prompt. We run the risk, if they are shut down, that a different startup is not as cooperative and forthcoming with information, so we are not able to do timely investigations and things. So.
Yeah, so my question would probably be on this, probably for you, Detective Hill, but earlier there was the webpage Eros Review, and I think Chief showed that, and it said there were 20,000 members, people paying to find women or write reviews about them. Is there a way we can find out who those people are? I mean, they're probably Johns, if they're paying to do that, or is there privacy things? Because if it is illegal to do that, you think we'd be able to figure out who they are?
Well, I get an opportunity to chime in. That's erotic review is based in the United Kingdom. Geography doesn't matter.
We can't go after out-of-country websites, but the Federal Bureau of Investigations, Homeland Security, are looking into those types of options.
Okay, first, I just want to thank you guys for making a difference in our community, because, there are teenagers that are waiting for it to happen to them, for them to recognize how important it is for those who are affected from it. And I was wondering, how can we help our communities realize how this situation is just getting, so terrible that it's just around the world? Can we protest? Can we fight against anything in our community that can help this world recognize how hurtful this is for the women who have been having trauma or trying to recover from all of this?
I'm going to give you a short answer. You're doing it right now. Your presence here with everyone in here, you're doing it right now.
Jump in. There's actually two different questions, but they're kind of tied together. One is, do traffickers hit the SEAL predator list? I'm going to assume that that is the registered predator list. And the one that's related to that, is there a public website I can go to check if my neighbor is a predator?
Yeah. No. Yes and no. Predator, anybody convicted of any sexual violent crime against a child or an adult is subject to the predator offender notification website that's put on by the state of Minnesota. The access to that site, the public access to that site only covers, and this is state law, only allows the public information of level 3, which is the worst of the worst criminals, and any predatory offender or sexual offender who is currently not following the guidelines and is currently subject to arrest.
This question's for Carrie.
And I'm just wondering if these children that you've identified in the schools, and you say you have social workers and other referrals, are you also working with any of the clinics or anything? I mean, trafficked children usually have some, unique medical needs, and not necessarily sexual assault exams, but just nutritional needs, all kinds of things like that. And I'm just wondering if you have a clinic that you've identified that you can refer these young men and women to.
Yeah, we are really lucky. We have some amazing community partners. So I look at where that young person or that family, whoever I'm working with, whatever their community is, so North Metro Pediatrics, Nucleus, depending on where they're coming from. We have some great community partners. And then when I'm stuck, I have some experts that I can reach out to find other resources. But we've been really, really lucky with both mental health and medical community providers. So if you have other ideas, feel free to talk to me afterwards.
Is there a stat like DWI's 1,000 times driving before getting caught? How many times does a John use a victim before getting caught?
I can't, you know what, if I had my PowerPoint, I could be more accurate with that. But doing John School over the years that we've done it, we have a post and a pre and a post test that we do that we actually ask them, have you bought young ladies before or boys or what have you? And I'm gonna just throw a number of like 80 to 75% of them guys have at least had 1 to 5 times purchased. But we have had guys that I've seen when I review the evaluations that have said they've done 50 to over 100 girls. So there's no, what is it, research or whatever they do to gather all that? Because once again, they have to get busted first, okay? And that doesn't mean they're gonna be honest and say, I've bought 1,000. It's being arrested in the John School, you can only get arrested once and utilize the John School. If they get arrested again in Ramsey County, they're supposed to go to jail. Now, we know there's somebody out here who got arrested twice that we know of for our John School, and he should have went to jail, but because of medical health reasons, this person in the judicial system didn't go. So we're trying to follow up and see what happened to him.
I'm a volunteer at Hope for Youth, and I volunteer on Tuesdays, Hope for Youth, as the receptionist. And on Tuesday, we had 39 students, our youth, come to our little location for food, clothing, advice, resources. It's a wonderful place for our youth in Anoka County and Coon Rapids. They come from Minneapolis. They come all over. And I just wanted to encourage people here to check into it. It's a very rewarding, I don't want to say organization, but just a good place to go, and you feel rewarded. You're helping these youth. I can't say enough about it.
Thank you for volunteering.
Yeah. And the other question is Anoka High School going to have anything like this?
This was an event in collaboration with the Anoka-Hennepin School District. We just picked Coon Rapids to host it, but we will have ongoing things, and we are looking for something in the fall, another big community event.
I feel very overwhelmed. I can't imagine how you people feel at times, because this is kind of like one of the first times I'm hearing all this. I'm amazed that it's within 48 hours, our young children, I'm going to call them children, okay, 16, 17. I know I should call them youth. But the other thing that totally surprises me is we don't have a home for them. We don't have a place in our county that they can go. And my question is, okay, folks, how do we get that going? Where is it going to be? How much money do we need? Let's get our butts going.
Again, we need to talk to those elected officials. I really encourage all of you. You have a voice, and it is critical that we have an overnight homeless youth shelter and transitional housing, affordable housing. So we need to make sure we have many, many voices saying how important it is. So thank you so much. I just want to also quick mention when we're going to the next question is we talked about those over 200 unaccompanied youth in Anoka-Hennepin that are really at risk for trafficking, but it's not just youth experiencing homelessness. You know, we have situations where a young girl's self-esteem might be a little bit low. She's at a high school basketball game, and that trafficker, pimp, is in the stands. He sees, oh, somebody's having a tough day, and he goes and says all the perfect things, says all the right stuff. So it's not just our unsheltered and youth experiencing homelessness. Any of our young men and women, young boys and girls are going to be at risk. So be mindful of that. Don't just think, well, my daughter is safely housed. She's not at risk. All of our young people are at risk in our community, so don't forget that.
And I would just echo that. I think, you know, Carrie has done a real good job of trying to educate our electeds around the communities as good as she can. And again, that goes back to all of us to be a voice out in the communities. And for the record, Hope for Youth, I sing your guys' praises whenever I can. You just do an amazing job there. And keep being vocal about all the things you've heard tonight. Keep talking about this issue. Take it to the water cooler. Again, keep spreading the word. Make sure people know that it's an issue. As far as the link, as soon as we get the link for the video that's being done tonight, we'll have that on the sheriff's office. We'll also have that on our Facebook page, things like that. We're going to do 2 more questions. I don't mean to cut you off, but I know we've got resource tables outside, and I want to make sure everybody gets an opportunity there too. So we'll do a couple more questions, and then we'll wrap up.
Let me just chime in real quick. If you don't take nothing else away from here, because I've heard the word used a couple of times now, take the word prostitute out of your mouth. Don't use it in your language no more, because when you use that word prostitute, and if someone hears it like how I've sat in here and heard it, if I was a victim in here, I would not come to you to talk because I see how you already have categorized me. And that goes for all of us here. The word prostitute has to be removed, same as in legislation. Take it out, otherwise kids aren't gonna come talk to you about anything. If that's how you view us, why should I talk to you?
I have 2 questions. First, for Joy, you had, sorry, I'm right here. You had commented on how the first time the Johns get introduced to your program and the second time they go to jail. Why don't they go to jail the first time and have to go through the John program?
They actually do go to jail. They get booked, and part of their sentence, if they haven't pleaded it down or pleaded out, is they come to John School. It's part of their court order. So they do go to jail in Ramsey County. A couple of the other surrounding areas like Anoka, Coon Rapids, and them, I think some of them don't have, I think it's Brooklyn Park and Brooklyn Center don't arrest the guys. They send them to John School, though, but they haven't gone through the procedure of the court system because of prosecution and money and stuff like that. Finances, once again, stops them from prosecuting. It costs a lot of money, I guess, to do that, too. But I think they all should go to jail, actually, and then come to ours.
And what can we do as a community to change that, to fight for stricter rules for the buyers and the sellers?
In Coon Rapids, they all go to jail. Then, as part of the prosecution, then it just, like it or not, is that then it becomes a negotiation once it gets to the prosecution, and the truth is they cannot afford, I'm just telling you, the Coon Rapids City Attorney or the City of Coon Rapids can't afford to prosecute through a trial every John. So yes, it is a bit of a give and take. Harsher penalties, though, I think you're preaching to the choir here. Have conversation with legislators about the penalties. It would be state level legislators about the penalties, increasing the penalties. I think you just heard they increased recently within the last year, and there's always the potential to make it more. Realistically, we may be on the front edge of something that'll be dramatically different 5 years from now. 25 years ago, DWI wasn't a big deal. I guarantee you, you don't want one of those today. And that's a process. So we'll get there.
So 2-part. What is safe sex supply, and does any of the programs help with safe sex supply if the youth don't want to stop at the time? And how many programs?
So Hope for Youth and a few other organizations, we meet young people where they are. We're not going to judge them. We're going to help them through that journey. And if it means tonight there is not a shelter in Anoka County for me as a 19-year-old female to lay my head and I have to go exchange sex for a place to stay, I'm engaging in survival sex or I'm being exploited, whatever the reason is, we have condoms and a variety of other safe sex options for the young people, and we want to make sure that they're safe. So if that's the option that they have or that's the choice that they're making for the night, there are nonprofits in the community that do provide safe sex options.
To make this event happen, we know it takes a team, and I want to thank all of our partners on the stage. I want to thank all the partners that are staffing the resource tables outside. Don't forget to stop by and see what they have available for you as you engage in this battle with us. And don't forget that ultimately we need your partnership to make a difference in the communities. It really does take a team, and tonight we need each one of you to understand and embrace the fact that you are a core member of this team in order to be successful. So I thank you all for taking the time out of your busy schedules to be here, to learn more, and to partner with us to make a positive difference in our communities. Oh, thank you.